Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we try to cut through the noise and bring you some fascinating insights into how our world really works.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're tackling something really fundamental but, well, incredibly complex. Water.
Right. Essential stuff.
Specifically, how do we predict water demand in places seeing just explosive growth, especially when that growth comes with these, radical technological shifts?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge.
It's not just some technical puzzle, is it? It's really about ensuring our modern communities can actually, well, sustain themselves.
Exactly. It underpins everything.
So to really get to grips with this, we're zooming in on Loudoun County, Virginia.
Ah, Loudoun.
How about-
Prime example.
I mean, this place is just a marvel of rapid expansion. We're talking a population jump from around, 86,000 in 1990
Yeah, something like that.
to an estimated 443,000 today. That's nearly 5 times bigger in just over 30 years.
Incredible growth. Really is.
But here's the really unique twist. Loudoun is also home to Data Center Alley,
The biggest concentration in the world. Yeah.
the world's largest cluster of data centers. Tens of millions of square feet already built or under construction. It's massive.
And constantly expanding.
So our mission in this deep dive is to sort of uncover the sophisticated strategies you need to predict water and wastewater needs for places like this, especially with such diverse and, frankly, unpredictable demands.
Uh-huh.
We'll explore a practical, step-by-step approach that experts actually use to plan decades ahead.
And that unpredictable part you mentioned, that's absolutely key. Forecasting in this kind of dynamic environment, it isn't just about counting heads anymore. No. It's about this complex interplay of factors, everything from how, a single household uses water, right down to the specific and rapidly evolving technological demands of industrial giants like these data centers.
Okay.
It's about creating a truly comprehensive infrastructure plan, like Loudoun Water's innovative reuse system.
The purple pipes.
That's the one. 20 miles of specialized purple pipe delivered something like 736 million gallons of reclaimed water in 2024 alone.
What?
That's a real testament to trying to proactively tackle this challenge, not just react to it.
Okay, that sounds like a colossal task, though. So what makes Loudoun County's growth uniquely challenging for the water forecasters? It's clearly more than just the sheer number of new people, right?
Oh, yeah, much more. What's truly fascinating here is a kind of perfect storm. You've got several contradictory trends all hitting at once.
Oh, contradictory. How so?
Well, first, you have that rapid population growth we talked about, huge influx. But, and this is the twist, it's coupled with a declining average water use per person.
Huh. So more people, but each person uses less.
Exactly. More people are moving in, sure, but newer homes have efficient fixtures, building codes are stricter, water pricing often encourages conservation.
Okay, makes sense.
So yeah, each individual uses less water, even as the total population swells. That's a critical tension right there.
Okay, tension one. What else?
Then there's the volatility of non-residential demand. This is where those data centers really stand out.
Right, the big players.
Hyperscale operations, the needs of AI workloads, they can pivot incredibly quickly on where they site new facilities, and critically, what cooling technologies they choose.
Ah, the cooling tech.
Yes, and this creates what we call step changes in demand. Sudden, dramatic jumps in water use that can appear almost overnight.
Step changes.
Think about it. Traditional air cooling uses almost no water. Evaporative systems use a lot. Direct liquid cooling is somewhere else entirely. Maybe they use reclaimed water.
So many variables.
All with vastly different water footprints. And companies can shift between them pretty fast as technology or economics change.
Wow. Okay, so population versus per capita use, and then this non-residential volatility. Is there a third piece?
There is. It's the spatial complexity of the county itself.
Spatial complexity, meaning...
It's not a uniform grid.
Yeah.
You have multiple water pressure zones, different sewer sheds feeding different treatment plants. You've got a mix of urban infill development happening alongside brand new greenfield expansion out in the suburbs. Even the timing of when a specific new factory or data center connects to the reclaimed water network adds another layer.
So where the water is needed and how it gets there.
Precisely. It's like trying to predict a chessboard where the pieces not only move but sometimes change their movement rules mid-game.
Okay, so it's not just needing more water, it's how and where these vastly different users consume it and how quickly technology can just rewrite that whole equation.
You got it.
It sounds less like straightforward projection and more like, I don't know, managing this really dynamic ecosystem.
That's a good way to put it.
So how do you even begin to impose some kind of order on such a vast amount of data and these constantly shifting conditions? Where do you start?
Right, that's the crucial first step. Structuring the problem. You really need to look through two critical lenses at the same time. One is the top-down perspective. Think broad, county-wide factors. Demographics, economic drivers, overall conservation trends, maybe even long-term climate signals.
The big picture.
The big picture. But then you also need the bottom-up view. This means focusing on the granular details, specific land use pipelines, what developers are actually planning, the precise mix of industries in a given zone, parcel by parcel almost.
Top down and bottom up. Got it.
And you also have to meticulously define your spatial units, aligning those pressure zones and sewer sheds with existing geographic areas like census tracts or traffic analysis zones.
EAZs, right?
Yeah. And then you categorize your water users in detail. We're talking single-family homes, multifamily units, commercial, institutional, industrial, landscaping, irrigation.
And the data centers.
And, of course, those unique data centers all tracked separately. You need that level of detail.
Okay, once you've structured the problem like that, defined all your categories and zones, where do you begin gathering the actual, raw material, the data for these predictions? What's the starting point?
That's when you build your baselines. That's step 2, really. Ideally, you want about a decade's worth of monthly historical data.
10 years? Wow, what kind of data?
It's quite a bit. You need billed water volumes by customer class, ideally maximum daily usage, and even maximum hourly usage.
Which you'd get from SCADA systems or smart meters.
Exactly. Plus things like temperature, precipitation records, historical water pricing tiers, even notes on outages or anomalies. It paints the picture of the past.
Okay.
But here's the critical part. You then have to normalize this data. You adjust for things like, say, a particularly hot summer or a past price increase so you can compare apples to apples over time.
Right. Isolate the underlying trends.
Precisely. Then you calculate specific use per unit metrics for each user category you defined earlier.
Use per unit. Like?
So for single-family homes, it might be gallons per connection per day or maybe gallons per capita per day based on household size. For multifamily, maybe gallons per unit per day. For commercial or institutional, often it's something like gallons per day per 1,000 square feet of floor space.
Right.
And for data centers, it's a very unique metric. Often kilogallons per megawatt year, or maybe water usage effectiveness, WUE, which is liters of water per kilowatt hour of energy consumed.
Liters per kilowatt hour, okay.
And crucially, you need that WUE broken down by the specific cooling technology they use. That's vital.
Because the cooling tech makes such a huge difference.
A massive difference. And the important takeaway here is that these metrics, especially for data centers, their efficiency, their WUE, even the share, considering liquid cooling, that's all shifted materially just since 2024. So your baseline data has to be really current and reflect those changes.
Okay. So baseline's built, data normalized, use per unit calculated. You got a solid picture of the past and present. How do you then, peer into the future? What are the key drivers you need to forecast demand decades down the road?
Right. This is where we shift from looking back to projecting forward. Step 3 is forecasting several critical drivers. Well, first, population and housing. Usually you adopt official county projections, maybe reconciling them with the latest census data, looking at specific growth corridors like near Dulles Airport.
Standard demographic stuff?
Pretty standard, but you need solid numbers. Then, critically, the non-residential pipeline. You're tracking approved site plans, vacancy rates, absorption rates for commercial space, anticipating large future loads like new schools, hospitals, major corporate campuses moving in.
So what's actually planned and permitted? Exactly.
But for a place like Loudoun County, the data center pipeline is, as we've said, absolutely paramount. It needs its own dedicated forecast.
Okay. What does that involve?
You have to track planned megawatts, often broken down by development phase. You need intel on the intended cooling design for each phase, even the specific owner's operational strategy, if you can get it.
Wow, that's detailed.
It has to be. You're cross-referencing this with county economic development reports, market tracking services. They show the sheer scale, those tens of millions of square feet operating or under construction.
And the fourth driver?
Climate. You can't ignore it. You have to bake in projections for hotter summers, longer, more intense heat waves.
Because that directly impacts cooling.
Directly impacts cooling loads for buildings and data centers, plus drives up landscape irrigation demand. You need to understand that weather elasticity.
Okay, so you're forecasting population, non-residential growth, the data center pipeline specifically, and climate impacts. That sounds like you're not just relying on one crystal ball, but trying to integrate insights from many different sources.
Precisely. You can't just use one method. Which brings us to step 4, using a model stack. Think of it as an ensemble approach.
A model stack. Ensemble, meaning?
Meaning you compare and combine the results from multiple different types of models to get a more robust prediction. You don't trust just one.
Okay. What kinds of models are in the stack?
Well, you might have an econometric model. That tries to predict how that use per unit metric we talked about changes based on factors like weather, price, income, even property age, seasonality.
Okay, statistically driven.
Right. Then you'd likely have a land use build-out model. This calculates total future demand by essentially summing up all the projected units, houses, square feet of commercial, megawatts of data centers in each zone, multiplied by their expected use rate. It often includes ramp-up curves for how quickly new developments actually start using water.
So based on physical development plans?
Correct. You also absolutely need peaking models. These focus specifically on deriving the maximum day demand, or MDD, and the maximum hour demand, MHD.
For sizing pipes and pumps.
Exactly. You figure out those peaks by user class and zone, and then you escalate them using different climate change scenarios to see how high they might go.
Makes sense. What else is in the stack?
Often a probabilistic model, maybe using Monte Carlo simulations. This helps you account for the inherent uncertainties we've discussed.
Like the timing of growth.
Exactly. Or how quickly reclaimed water connections actually happen, or those critical data center cooling technology choices. It gives you a range of possible outcomes, not just one number.
Okay, acknowledging the uncertainty.
Absolutely vital. And perhaps most importantly, you use scenario planning. This isn't a model type per se, but an approach where you develop multiple plausible future storylines.
Like
a baseline or most likely future, a high-growth scenario, maybe an AI surge scenario where data center demand explodes even faster, or perhaps a conservation-accelerated scenario where water efficiency improves more quickly than expected.
So you can test against different potential futures.
Precisely. The real insight here, I think, is the humility required. No single model can possibly capture all this complexity perfectly, so experts are forced to embrace that uncertainty and use this ensemble or stack approach to get a more resilient forecast.
That makes a lot of sense. This brings us back, inevitably, to those data centers. Our source material really stresses they need, quote, special treatment. Why? What makes their water footprint so unique and impactful compared to, say, just a large office building or a residential neighborhood?
Yeah, they really are different. Data centers are fascinating because, as we touched on, their corporate strategies and especially their cooling technology can vary so widely. Sometimes it even changes mid-project.
Right.
So you can't just treat them like a standard commercial customer based on square footage. It doesn't work. Instead, you have to treat their load as these modular blocks directly tied to their power consumption, their megawatts, and crucially, their specific cooling pathway.
Modular blocks tied to MW and cooling.
Okay. And we generally think about 4 main archetypes or pathways for cooling.
4 types. Okay, what are they?
First, you have air-cooled data centers. These use outside air, maybe with some basic humidity control, but fundamentally they use virtually no operational water for cooling. Their water usage effectiveness, that WU metric, it's effectively 0 or very close to it.
So their main impact is power, not water.
Primarily power, yeah. You might allow for tiny amounts for other processes or maybe some landscape irrigation, but the core cooling is water-free. Wastewater is negligible.
Okay. Type 1. Air-cooled, no water.
Type 2. Evaporative cooling systems using potable water. Drinking water.
Okay. This sounds like where the water use comes in.
This is where consumption scales up significantly, especially with ambient heat and humidity. Think cooling towers. Water evaporates to cool the equipment, so their peak day water use can be much, much higher than their average use. And the wastewater they produce is mainly blowdown.
Blowdown.
Yeah, it's the concentrated water that gets flushed out of the cooling towers periodically to prevent minerals from building up and causing scale. So it's a distinct wastewater stream, often high in dissolved solids. This type, evaporative using potable water, represents the highest dependency risk on the drinking water supply, especially during droughts.
Makes sense. What are typical numbers for that?
Planning placeholders are often in the range of, say, 1 to 4 liters per kilowatt hour, with the higher end used during hotter months.
Okay. Type 3.
The third archetype is basically the same technology, evaporative cooling, but using reclaimed or purple pipe water instead of potable water.
The reuse system.
Exactly. This is brilliant from a water resource perspective because it shifts potentially huge volumes off the precious potable supply.
But are there challenges?
Oh, definitely. It requires careful coordination. Is the reclaimed water available year-round, especially in summer? You need to manage the water quality, particularly the total dissolved solids, the
The
TDS.
salts and minerals again?
Right, because they concentrate even more in reclaimed water. And you absolutely need redundancy, a backup connection to potable water in case the reclaimed supply isn't interrupted. Loudoun County's system, with its 20 miles of mains delivering 736 million gallons, is a prime example of making this work at scale. The physics are the same as potable evaporative, but the source is different.
Got it. Evaporative with reclaimed water. And the fourth type.
Finally, we have direct liquid cooling or hybrid adiabatic systems. These are generally more advanced technologies.
Less water.
Usually, yes. Significantly less water than traditional open cooling towers. They might use closed loops with refrigerants or specialized fluids, maybe with some supplemental evaporative or adiabatic cooling for peak heat rejection. They have very design-specific makeup water requirements.
And are these becoming more common?
We've definitely seen growing interest and adoption in the market, especially since 2024. Efficiency is a big driver. Their operational water use might be, less than 1 or maybe up to 2 liters per kilowatt hour, but it really depends on the specific design and the climate they're operating in.
Okay, so air-cooled, evaporative potable, evaporative reclaimed, and direct liquid hybrid. Understanding the type of cooling is just as critical, maybe even more critical than knowing how many megawatts are planned.
Absolutely. Because their water footprints are dramatically different. It's a huge piece of the forecasting puzzle.
Okay, so you've built these incredibly detailed forecasts using multiple models, accounting for different data center types. After all that sophisticated modeling, how do you actually know if your predictions are reliable? Reliable enough to base, multi-million-dollar infrastructure decisions on?
Yeah, that's the critical step 5. Calibrate, validate, and stress test. You don't just run the models and call it a day.
How do you calibrate and validate?
Well, one key technique is backcasting. You take your model, configured with data from, say, 5 years ago, and see how well it predicts the actual water use that occurred over the last 5 years.
Testing it against reality.
Exactly. You compare the model output to the actual historical build data, broken down by user class and zone. You're typically aiming for a mean absolute percentage error, or MAPE, of less than maybe 10–15% on a monthly basis. It shows your model structure captures the recent past reasonably well.
Okay, backcasting for validation. What about stress testing?
This is maybe even more important for future planning. You deliberately push your models with what-if scenarios that represent potential shocks or major uncertainties.
Like what kind of shock?
Things like, what if there's an unexpected AI surge that adds, say, an extra 500 megawatts per year for 3 years straight, beyond the baseline projection?
Okay.
Or what if we experience a severe 5-week heat dome event during summer? How does that impact peak demands? What if a critical reclaimed water main project gets delayed by 2 years? Or what if there's a sudden mandatory conservation ordinance imposed due to drought?
So you test the system's resilience to extremes.
You test the forecast's resilience. You see how sensitive your demand projections are to these kinds of plausible but challenging events. You compare the outputs from your different ensemble models under these stresses.
And what do you do with those results?
This helps you choose a planning band. You rarely plan infrastructure for just the single, most likely P50 forecast. Often, utilities plan for something higher, like a P75 or P80 outcome.
P80 meaning a demand level you're 80% confident won't be exceeded.
Sort of, yeah. It means there's only a 20% chance demand will be higher than that level, according to your models and scenarios. It builds in a safety margin, crucial headroom for error and unexpected events.
Okay, so calibrate, validate, stress test, choose a planning band like P50 to P80. That sounds robust. So what does all this complex modeling actually mean for the real world? Step 6, I guess. How does it translate into concrete decisions about pipes, pumps, treatment plants, and maybe even policy?
Right. This is the ultimate goal, isn't it? Step 6 is translating these forecasts into actual infrastructure and policy decisions, making it actionable.
How did that work for the water supply side?
For water, the forecasts directly inform how big your storage tanks need to be in each pressure zone that's based on those maximum day and maximum hour demands. It tells you the required capacity for your pumps. It guides where you need to plan for new interconnections between zones for flexibility. Crucially, it justifies extending those purple pipe reuse mains to serve new, large users like data centers. And it helps plan for resiliency. What happens if you temporarily lose a reuse source? Do you have enough backup?
Okay, sizing and locating the water infrastructure. What about the other side, wastewater?
For wastewater, it's similar, but different factors apply. You're analyzing the projected sewage flows at a sewer shed level, looking at those diurnal curves, how flow changes over 24 hours. You have to overlay estimates for wet weather impacts, like infiltration and inflow, or
Rain getting into leaky pipes.
exactly. You assess the process capacity of the wastewater reclamation facilities. Can they actually treat the projected volume and load? And you consider downstream impacts, like managing the salt levels, the TDS, and the treated effluent, especially if large-scale reuse is happening upstream.
So planning the wastewater treatment and collection systems, too. Does it influence policy?
Absolutely. The forecasts are critical inputs for policy levers. For instance, they might justify offering financial incentives for large users to connect to the reclaimed water system sooner rather than later.
Makes sense.
They can inform the design of seasonal pricing strategies to help manage peak summer demands. They might lead to specific guidance or even requirements for cooling technologies used by new large water users, or establishing agreements with major customers for sharing their own operational data, or providing advance notification of significant load changes.
So using policy to shape demand and improve predictability.
That's the idea. And finally, step 7 is really about managing uncertainty and adapting over time, because no forecast is perfect, especially decades out.
How do you manage that?
You lose those scenario bands we talked about, the P50, P80 range. You implement decision triggers.
Decision triggers.
Yeah, for example, you might authorize the design work for a new pump station when demand forecasts hit the P50 level for 5 years out. But you only authorize the construction funds when demand actually reaches, say, the P70 level, or R, when a certain number of data center megawatts are under contract. A and D, that critical reuse main, is energized and flowing. It links investment decisions to tangible progress and reduces the risk of building too much too soon.
Phasing decisions based on real-world signals.
Exactly. And you commit to reforecasting regularly, maybe quarterly, just for those big, volatile, non-residential customers, and perhaps annually for the entire base portfolio. You need constant monitoring of industry signals, county permitting dashboards, market reports, especially given how fast things are moving and, frankly, how controversial data center expansion and its energy and water footprints have become in places like Northern Virginia. It's a continuous loop.
Plan, monitor, trigger, adapt. Okay? This deep dive has really shown us an incredibly detailed, sophisticated, and adaptable approach to forecasting water and wastewater demand. It's impressive. For you, the listener, whether you're maybe grappling with similar growth challenges in your own area, or just curious about how these complex essential systems are managed behind the scenes, what are the core lessons we can take away from all this?
That's a great question. I think one key lesson is the need for what you might call a minimum viable ensemble of models. Don't feel you need every type of model from day one, but start with something robust, like a solid land use build-out model, plus maybe a simplified econometric model to capture price and weather effects, definitely augmented by a dedicated module for those critical large users, like data centers in this case.
Start strong but focused.
Right, and get your data definitions straight from the beginning. What counts as commercial? How do you measure data center load? Freeze those definitions and then iterate quickly on the models. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough to start making better decisions.
Okay, practical advice. What else?
Another core takeaway is the absolute importance of deriving and tracking those use per unit trends and the peaking factors separately for each key user class and within each spatial zone. It's not enough to know total demand. You need to know who is driving it, when, and where. Alongside that, quantifying weather elasticity, how much does demand change with temperature, and identifying where conservation efforts might be hitting a plateau, that granular understanding is crucial.
Know your users, know their patterns.
Exactly. And finally, always, always be prepared for unpredictability. Use those scenario bands and establish clear decision triggers for infrastructure investment. Acknowledge you don't have a perfect crystal ball. The ability to forecast accurately, even within a range, means a utility can proactively address challenges, secure funding, and avoid incredibly costly, disruptive, reactive measures down the road.
Yeah, being proactive, not reactive. It seems this isn't just about water, is it? It's really about enabling smart growth, adapting to rapid technological change, and ultimately ensuring a sustainable future for these communities.
Absolutely. It highlights just how deeply interconnected Our critical infrastructure, the economy, and our environment truly are. You can't really separate them.
So a final thought perhaps for you, our listener. What does this deep dive into Loudoun County mean for your community, or maybe the industries you follow closely? Consider how the rapid evolution of technology, think AI, but maybe other things too, could unexpectedly stress resource demands, water, energy, land, in areas you might not typically associate with those kinds of pressures.
Yeah, that's a really important point.
How prepared are we, collectively, to adapt our planning processes for this next wave of potentially unforeseen impacts? Especially when, as we've seen here, the best solution often isn't just about building bigger pipes, but building much, much smarter systems. Something to think about.